Okay, hi everybody. Thank you so much for coming. I'm so excited that everyone's here. I immediately stepped out of the camera. Okay, I'm gonna be like negotiating, like seeing all of your faces and being on Instagram. So we're gonna try to do our best here. My name is Artemis. I use she/they pronouns. Hello, everybody. I work here at SHAG, and I'm a general impact enthusiast, so I'm really excited to be doing this little intro workshop, kind of Impact 101, how to hit our friends, why we might want to hit our friends, what it means to hit our friends, all that good stuff. So I guess first I want to talk about some language we're going to use in here to like discuss all this stuff, and also answer some of those questions I just said. So impact in general is just like some kind of transference of force from one person to another, or from yourself to yourself, I suppose. And typically we can say like either the person giving the impact or receiving the impact, or we can say like top and bottom to mean like giver and receiver. I want to make a distinction between top and bottom and like dom and sub. Those are separate but potentially related titles and roles. A way of thinking about it that I was thinking about earlier was like if you were to perform oral sex on somebody, like that isn't necessarily imbued with power, but it can be. You can imbue it with power that the giver is in the high power position. You can imbue it with power that the giver is in the low power position, right? Or it can be something that has nothing to do with power exchange, and it's just something that we're all enjoying, right? So I think with impact, there's a lot of kind of associations with like the Catwoman suit and the whip, and there's like a kind of dominatrix thing happening maybe, or like daddy spanking you, and like fun, all fun, but not necessarily like the main idea all the time. So that's that. Impact is a type of sensation play. To me, that's like an umbrella term that captures a lot of things that are like about sex, but aren't like sex. Like we picture sex as we're taught in school, and I keep doing this gesture. Like sex looks like a lot of things for a lot of people, and there's a million and one reasons why this might not be what we're trying to do. Might not be happening at all. It's very heteronormative and cisnormative and old-fashioned. So, and it's like having one note when there's so much music to be played. That was good. I just came up with it. That was beautiful. Thank you, everybody. That's good night, everyone. This impact stuff, generally speaking, plays a little bit more with pain, right? So sensation play, we can think about stuff like little ticklers, right? Like this is all sensation play. Wax, like dripping hot wax is sensation play. Stuff like the word wheel, right, is like kind of a spiky little wheel, and it's like this is giving me sensation in a kind of specific way. With impact, typically we're going to be talking more about pain, right? And why? We're supposed to like this person. Why are we hitting them? Why are we putting them in pain? Why? Does anyone have any ideas? I'm curious. I don't have an answer, but I want to know like why.
Because they're misbehaving.
Okay, because they're misbehaving, yeah, so we can use it as power punishment, yeah, like this.
Because they like it.
Because they like it, yeah. Why might you like pain?
Surprise.
It can be surprising, yeah.
Scary.
It can be scary.
It's a relinquishment of control.
It's a relinquishment of control, right, which has to do with like trust. Yeah. A lot of what we've talked about is like relinquishment of control is a good example of like that can be present in like quote unquote vanilla sex, right? Like sex is always about intimacy and trust and communication and like, I mean, I don't know, I guess not always, but that's like my association with like good sex is like sex that's like connected, right? And you're like sharing in something. And so impact can be like a way to engage with those things. So I'm going to talk a lot about like designing or negotiating a scene, like an impact scene. This is a word from the kink world that is kind of like a closed container to talk about like things we've agreed upon beforehand that are going to go down in this space, in this short period of time, or I guess long period of time, whatever you want to negotiate. It's like setting the ground rules, right? It is not a contract. It is not like, oh, well, we said we were going to do it. It's just like a beginning premise. And again, that is something that everything, like all sex should start with that conversation. All sex should start with like checking in. It's like, how are we doing? What are we in the mood for? What are we looking for? What do we want, right? So that is getting into consent, right? Which is also present in impact as it isn't all sex. Consent is something that is ongoing and can be revoked at any time, right? And it's not so simple as yes and no, right? Especially as we're going into like more murky, risky waters where we're hitting people and being hit and maybe not facing people, or maybe we're wearing a blindfold or we're gagged, right? There's like a lot of layers of kind of risk. And so as we talk about like having safer sex, part of it is like setting up structures to allow us to take those risks and be safe. I, once upon a time, was involved in a lot of like circus-y stuff. And there was a teacher who talked to me about like risk versus danger, right? So risk is like, how likely is it that this is going to go wrong? And then danger is like, what's going to happen if this goes wrong, right? And so like I might walk a tightrope a foot above the ground, and it's like high likelihood I'm going to fall, but low danger because I just step off it, right? And then if I'm going to like walk across a 6 foot wide pathway 100 feet in the air, there's a low likelihood, like I'm probably going to be able to do that, but if something goes wrong, it's like really bad, right? So this like balancing act is like something to consider as you're getting into all of these things that are inherently risky, right? Okay. Also, another thing I just want to throw in about impact play that makes it cool, and this is true with a lot of kink stuff, or really, again, anything that's not this. Impact is like inherently degendered. It is inherently available to all, regardless of some assumed abilities that might make kind of vanilla sex difficult for people or unavailable to people. Impact can be a really interesting thing to explore if you have like chronic pain, or if you are experiencing some plethora of medical or psychological conditions that make kind of what we are taught in school with the banana and the condom as sex, like not available to you. So impact and all kink in general can be a really fantastic way to like connect with a partner or connect with yourself in your own body that is not so tangled up in these like socially taught ideas around what sex looks like. And you can still have that like beautiful catharsis and intimacy and trust and all those things we were talking about, right? I'm talking a lot. Are we down? Are we with me so far? Everybody happy? Okay. Yes. Okay. So I am going to caution against going to the kitchen for impact toys. I know it's tempting, but there are purpose-built things out there for doing this. We have an amazing time. We're in an amazing shop right here where we sell all kinds of goodies that are built for this. And it's just reduces the risk by a lot, right? So the DIY angle, there's ways to do it, but if possible, if you can afford it, if you're able, try to buy a tool that's made to hit someone with, because that's going to make it much easier. But the best place to start, if you've never done anything with impact before, the best place to start is an impact tool that all of us in here have. In fact, we have 2 of them. Can anybody guess what it might be? Manos, yes, our hands. Everybody is equipped incredibly with these 2 fantastic implements for impact, right? So in like any impact scene or any interest in exploring impact, this is like the place to start. And they're actually super versatile. There's a lot of different ways that we can engage with our partner with our hands. And I want to talk about those, and I also want to talk about where we are hitting people, because that is also a very important ingredient in all of this, obviously. So I'm going to call it my assistant, my Vanna White, here. You can introduce yourself if you want.
I'm Erin. I'll be the impact model.
Yes, we love the impact model. Yes. Erin's also my partner of 8 years, so we have yay, love. So we have some level of communication that's we've gone through this, and we talked beforehand. So I'm not necessarily modeling the levels of conversation and consent, because we're going to just be demonstrating stuff. I'm not doing anything crazy. This isn't a boom chica have a show. This is just
Just said it paused.
Yeah. Okay, we're back. Hello, sorry, internet friends. Huge trust and strong connector, someone says. Thanks for sharing. Okay. Okay. We don't have to hit people in the back, but I feel like that's typically where we're hitting people. So I'm going to start with the most common area of interest, which is our beautiful rump, right? So with impact in general, we want to be hitting fleshy, soft areas. We are not hitting bones. Ow, not fun for anyone. Dangerous, actually, right? So we don't want to hit, we can feel there's this beautiful ridge of where our pelvis is. We don't want to be hitting there. Okay, we don't want to hit the fronts of the knees, right? Anywhere where there's bones sticking out, front of the shin, ow, we've all done that on a coffee table, not sexy. Backs of the elbows, weird bony places, right? Our spines, a lot of crucial information being passed up and down here. Don't hit your partner on the spine, ow, 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 right? So we're looking for fleshy, meaty parts, and always we're in constant conversation with the person that is receiving or the person that is giving this impact to say ooh, that didn't feel so good, right? Or ooh, that's actually fine, right? All of these things can be explored slowly to see what feels good and is interesting for everybody. We can hit shoulder blades a little bit, right? If we explore that and see, and depending on the implement we're using, with hands, it's pretty okay to hit shoulder blades, right? But again, we don't want to be hitting along the spine. Down here above the pelvic crest, there's definitely a better name. I got to see an anatomy. Stay with me. We do not want to be hitting kidneys. Ow, ow, ow. Bad time, doctor's visit. Don't hit a kidney, especially with stuff like floggers or paddles, things that are blunt force. Ow. Don't hit someone above. That's something really, really common, really dangerous. Stay below, try to find their tailbone, stay below it, right? So we're talking about underbutt area, all fair game, right? Backs to the legs, we have the sciatic nerve. See, you guys thought you were going to get a sexy workshop. Science class, joke's on you. We're going to be doing some physics later. You guys aren't ready. Sciatic nerve, right? Some people love being hit in the back of the thighs. For some people, it's a very strong, fantastic sensation. But also, you can aggravate that nerve, right? So just layers of communication ongoing all the time, right? Backs to the knees, bad. With lymph nodes, all kinds of stuff in there, don't hit there. But soles of the feet are a spot that people don't usually think about. That's pretty hittable with consent and conversation. Fronts of the thighs. You want to be careful around the genitals, obviously. That's a different type of scene that this workshop's not about, but mazel tov. If you want to get into it, do some Googling. When we get into toys, I'll talk about it. And then the front bits, I'd be worried about I said soft fleshy bits, but that doesn't mean organs, right? So we don't want to hit our partners on the belly. That's going to be diaphragm, ow, owie, ow. This is sternum, don't hit them there. I guess we can smack some breasts around, but with caution. I wouldn't say into the body, kind of shearing force is what I would suggest. Right? Does that make sense? Everybody on board? Okay. So let's talk about hands. So hands can be used to hit our partner, but also to feel and check in as we go. So I would say in general, there's this idea of warming up and then continuing the scene. If we're going to just use impact as a little seasoning on another sexual activity, it works that way too. But the same principle applies. You want to start slow. You don't want to come in like first thing, just be like, right? Like you give yourself nowhere to go. Like you want to start soft, and even like as the bottom, it's good if at first you're kind of like, is that it, right? But that's what's gonna let you go deep in it, right? If you come in, you're like, on the first hit, like bad red flag, right? We want to start slow and build, right? Because that threshold of like, ow, this is too much is actually very subjective and very able to change if we go slow and like move methodically along. So we can use our hand closed and we can use our hand open, right? This is a little bit like using a paddle that is solid, or a paddle with, this one doesn't have holes all the way through, but it has this kind of like texture. Sometimes I call them speed holes. A paddle with holes is like my hand is open. A paddle with no holes is like my hand is closed. The difference, and this is the physics I was warning you about, when we hit somebody with, you can turn around, I'm sorry, you don't have to just stand there. If you hit someone with a flat, like solid surface, excuse me, there is actually a cushion of air that occurs. I don't know if you've ever like dropped a flat pane of glass on a flat surface and it kind of like hovers a little bit. Is that a relatable image? I don't know. But like this is actually going to create a little cushion of air, and that makes it a little thuddier as opposed to stingy, whereas if it has holes, that cushion of air is unable to happen, and there's like faster kind of full contact between the wood and or your hand and the body, right? And that's going to be a little stingier. So this is a good continuum to keep in mind as I start talking about more implements and toys. The kind of thuddy to stingy spectrum is like an easy way to categorize some of the common experiences, right? Yeah. 5 more minutes? Sick. Okay, so stingy, thuddy, right? We can also do a fist and get in here a little bit, right? And this is like more thuddy. If we want to be like really, really thuddy. This is going to be those like deep purple bruises. And then this is more like redness on the skin. But I would say basically we want to get in there with our hands until our bottom feels warm, like hot. It should feel like they have a fever. It should be like physically feelable before you progress to like other tools, right? So what other tools might we use? We have all variety of floggers here. Generally speaking, for starting out, you want to get a shorter, these are called falls. All of these little tails are called falls. Shorter falls are going to be easier to manipulate than longer falls, which are like require a little more precision and technique, and you're going to end up standing further away from your partner. So I have a small apartment. I don't know about y'all, but I can't stand across the room. Like there's a limited amount of space, right? So things to consider. Also, the fewer falls there are, so like this has relatively few falls. This is going to be more stingy. This one has lots of falls. This is going to be more thuddy, right? There's like more, the impact's being spread across a wider surface area with this one as opposed to this one, right? And general flogger technique is about trying to catch them with just the tails of the flogger, right? What we don't want to be doing is like wrapping the flogger around, right, the thing. Because besides like not having a satisfying impact, that's going to potentially hurt them, right? If it's wrapping around, can I use it? If it's wrapping around, it could be hitting at like the front of the thigh in that ouchy bone zone. It could hit them in the genitals, which is like not necessarily the plan, right? So we want to, can you take a step back? Step that way. We want to try to catch it with just the tips to get that like good, precise impact. Always test when you're in the store, like trying to buy something. You can test it on your forearm, like you see I'm doing here. It's going to give you a better read than like trying on your hand, which has like a different amount of sensory receptors. I don't know why it's better on your forearm. You get to see like the marks it leaves better. And in a scene, it is totally okay and in fact recommended to try it on yourself. Like even if you use the tool before you go and hit someone with it, Just check. Where am I at? What is like easy feeling, right? As opposed to like just coming in like swinging, right? And you don't remember necessarily exactly what it feels like, right? So totally a valid thing to check on your arm. Also, with floggers, you can't just like kind of let it rip. Like it's not a single tail whip. You have to kind of get the tails in order with like a bit of a backswing, right? So you see how they all like stay together. Instagram people, can you see? They all stay together when I do a little bit of a more circular swing than if I just try to come and like hit someone, right? They're not gonna stay together, and it's gonna just like be like little confetti on them, which isn't so interesting. Okay, also this, I just want to show this tool because this implement because I think it's cool. This has a thick metal handle, which you can also use for like blunt impact if you want to be thuddy. Also, it's kind of cold, so it can be like you can soothe them with it before you continue hitting them, right? This kind of like ebb and flow, like good top, bad top, is like fun to play with. And throughout all of this, you should be checking in with your partner. So besides having a conversation at the beginning and saying, hey, where are we at? What are we trying to get into? How far are we trying to go? It's like, what tools do we want to use? Like, what toys do we have that we're curious about trying? It's possible that one day someone's like, hell yeah, let's go. I want to like really get into the flogger. And some days they're like, you know what? I think just your hands, like, let's just take it easy. I'm not trying to like go somewhere crazy, right? So that ongoing conversation between the two of you is really important. Paddles. Paddles are a little more risky than the flogger. I would say, it's all risky, but maybe more potential for danger, like we talk about the danger risk game. Because this is a weapon. I mean, this is like a real solid thing, right? So don't want to hit a bone, don't want to hit a kidney, like this. But within this, there's all kinds of fun things we can do. Like I said, this is like a little more thuddy versus a little more stingy. There's kind of edges you can play with, right? You can play with rhythm in addition to kind of intensity. That goes for all impact toys. Yes, paddles. I don't know what else there is to say about paddles. They look like they do. Leather paddles are a little flexier, maybe a little more forgiving than the wooden paddles, but still totally painful. Last on the menu, I think, are props. So these are a little more kind of precise pinpoint sensation. Also something you need a little real estate for. Like, doesn't work like up close really. And think about when you're hitting someone, try to keep like a mental map or like a little heat map of where you've been hitting them, because we want to like evenly treat, or not, I guess. We just want to be deliberate about where we're hitting, right? It's a very different sensation to hit someone on the same spot over and over and over. Even if you hit them the exact same hardness, that is a much different experience than being hit that same hardness all over, right? And so that gives a lot of vocabulary to the top, right? You can kind of focus in on a spot until you see it's like reaching the limit, and then you can go for a little walk around town and explore other areas, and then you can like come back to that sore spot, right? And that kind of like texture is like the next level of like creating a curated experience for your bottom to like feel taken care of and like pushed, and I don't know. If you just like come in and hit someone in the exact same spot over and over and over, that's a very specific type of scene, and you lose out on a lot of possibilities. So I encourage you to explore and see. Okay, crops, same thing, kind of like the flogger. We don't want to hit with like, we're not trying to hit them here. Like that's not going to give a good impact. It's not a cane. Don't try to use it like a cane. We want to use just the end there. And same rule applies. Shorter ones are a little easier to do. Also, this also has that cold steel, which can be kind of nice if you want to do that. But yeah. Something I forgot to mention when I was talking about consent. one easy shortcut for like reducing risk is safe words, right? So a common system is like red, yellow, green. Red is full stop, like I'm not having a good time, I'm going through something, I need to end the scene. Yellow being like, I'm still having a good time, but this thing right now is not good, like let's just check in and like see if something can change to like keep this going. And then green is like, hell yeah, let's go, right? That gives you a little bit more safety as opposed to just like yes and no, because like sometimes in very intense scenes you might want to say no, ow, no, ow, 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 but you don't want it to be over, right? You're like trying to, like, it's part of it, it's all part of that scene that you're having. So by checking in with the bottom, you can kind of hear no, no, ow, 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 green, like keep going, this is good, I'm having a good time, right? It gives like a little more specific language. And then the last thing I want to talk about, I think thank you for your service. Yeah, Aaron, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. The last thing I want to talk about is aftercare. So this is something that, again, in a perfect world would be present in all sex, but it is not a footnote. It is something that is totally worth talking about, and can be some of the most wonderful, rich times ever. And this is like after you've had a scene of any kind or sex of any kind. This is just about checking in with each other and seeing how you can support each other after this experience you've gone through. That can be something that's discussed beforehand also, like what do you usually like if you're experienced and you know. Afterwards, I want to be left alone. Afterwards, I need to like go to the bathroom and like wash my face and like hang out. And that's like fine. Or like afterwards, I want to like cuddle and like watch a movie and have hot cocoa, like whatever it is. Talking about that before and after and checking in will allow you to kind of metabolize and process what you just went through, and then also do it again and have fun, right? It can look like talking about the scene and saying, hey, this was cool, this wasn't, like this was fun, this wasn't, but it doesn't have to. That can be a conversation later in a coffee shop, out of earshot, right? Aftercare is just about like checking in. I think the kind of assumption is that the aftercare is something the top gives to the bottom, but tops need aftercare too. I think it's part of why we have a global top shortage, is because we have not been taking care of our tops, everyone. So it's a two-way street. Make sure we're taking care of each other. And the last thing that I didn't mention is that with some exceptions, floggers are a little tough, you can try stuff on yourself, like start alone, spank yourself, like get in there. You can do it virtual, if someone's long distance, like they can be telling you whatever. Like this is a good way to test your limits and see like what kind of sensation you like and don't like in a very safe, again, low risk kind of situation. Just set your safe words with yourself before, so that you can tell yourself, I guess not. Okay, are there any questions? Are there any like things that we have curiosities about or weren't addressed?
What do you recommend for a beginner? Like a good place to start? Oh, well.
But if you want to spend money at the shop I work at. Yeah, I mean like a nice, like a small flogger, like a lightweight flogger, like these are nice. Also like a good price point to get started. This is like a short, kind of manageable length and lets you moderate the kind of sensation a lot. Like it can be something very soft. Also, floggers are nice for like little tickly moments, right? We can kind of like engage in that way. And someone said surprise earlier, right? Like that's a really fun thing in an impact scene, is to play with the anticipation, especially if your partner is in a position where they're not facing you. It can be really rich to kind of tease them with it and then go get a cup of water and then come back, right? Like this patience game of like not knowing when the next hit's gonna come, you know, or hitting 4 times and then whiffing is like, you know, like, that can be part of the whole dialogue, right? Of this conversation that you're having with your partner. Are there other questions? We can keep talking after the live stream ends, but do internet people, do you have questions? Doesn't look like it so far. Okay. Well, I'm happy if you're happy. Just let me know if you have other questions. Carolyn also works here and is a great resource. So she can say stuff. And then what's our next workshop?
It'll be in the new year.
New Year.
But we have
Do
Shibari
know?
classes
We
all
don't
the
know
time.
the next workshop yet?
Yep.
Okay. But we have Shibari classes. We have, if you want to learn about the Japanese art of rope bondage, you can come and sign up for those. Yeah. There will be more of these in the new year. So keep your eyes peeled. We love Shag. If you're watching on this, you know. But yeah.